So the question here is, what have you found that helps with worrying? With not worrying, I should say.
What have I found?
What have you found that
Okay.
helps you cope
Well,
with worry?
I think at times I say to myself, it's a waste of time. I don't.
No point to it.
No point. No point.
That's great.
I try very hard, but it's useless.
That's great. That's a very good.
That's what I find.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, it ruins my life. Or it can ruin a day.
Sure.
I don't want it to. You can control that. There's
Sure.
jealousy.
I try to distract myself. I try, sometimes I'll sing a song. I do find that very soothing. And actually, when I have been listening to Rabbi Logan, and his voice seemed to be something I got used to, even if I wasn't digesting everything, just sort of hearing, so it's frames of reference.
That's great. That's great.
Frames of reference.
Okay, that's very good. So let's move on to page 124. Text number 1a. This is from Proverbs from King Solomon, where he's giving us lessons for life. Anita, you want to start? Go for it.
It's advice for the worry.
Yes.
The worry in a person's heart. Cast it away. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi interpreted this verse. One said, cast it from your mind. The other said, speak about it with others. Empathy eases worry. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson cited in Hayom 25 Sivan. Third, shall I read
No, let's stop there. Let's stop there. So what do we read? So we read that King Solomon tells us that you have a worry, yasicheno. What does that mean? So there's two opinions in the Gemara, or two ideas that he's including here. One is yascheno and one is yasicheno. Yascheno means cast it away, and yasicheno means talk to a friend about it. Share it with someone else. Why does talking about our worries help us with worries?
I think hearing the word said, it helps me process it better.
Great.
And at times while I'm processing, I may actually think of something else in another way of thinking about it.
That's great.
That's maybe the clarifies a little bit better.
That's great.
And then of course you get feedback from somebody else.
Very good.
You have
Right.
to pick people who have had similar experiences. That's the whole deal.
Right.
You know, for a particular thing that you're speaking about. That's what
Right. So obviously so you mentioned two things. One is that getting advice from someone else could help, as well as sometimes getting advice from yourself.
Yeah.
Hearing your own words and allowing yourself to process helps. Let us go to page 125, text 1c. And this is from the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, where he talks about this concept a little bit. Lindsay, you want to read?
Sure, the third Rebbe of Chabad explained, they are others only in the bodily sense. However, they are completely united with you, for they empathize with you.
Okay, so he pointed out that sharing with someone else is also alleviating the weight, because when that person connects to you, they aren't a separate person. They're now identifying with you, and now you're able to handle it more. You're not carrying the burden alone. Okay, that's great. That's regarding the second point, which was sharing it with others. Now, what about the first point? So I want to go back to the first point, which was to cast it away. Cast away your worry. You worry, stop worrying. And the question is, how exactly does that work? So let's go to page 127, text 2A, 2B, and then we'll see 2C as well. Linda, you want to continue for us? Go for it. Text 2A, 2B, and then we'll go on to 2C as well.
Regarding your questions concerning fears, etc., although they are overwrought I have not refrained from answering by sharing what's on my heart. My thanks be is for the Lord. Choose calm.
So this is one letter that you're reading. So he's responding to actually his mechutin, which was which was one of his chassidim at the time, and he had all these worries, and he said, although your worries are not actually real, there's no reason to worry, but nevertheless, I'm going to respond to you and give you advice.
It is certain, oh, this is choose calm. It is certain that you should ask God for joy, as it is written. Cause the soul of your servant to rejoice. Psalm 86:4. Similarly, we say in our prayers, remove the wound and lamenting from us. Nevertheless, there are also fears that people trigger themselves, and the choice and authority is given to them to withhold themselves from them.
Okay, so we have the ability somehow to not allow ourselves to worry. How would that work? So now we're going to move on to page 129. It's page 129, 2C, text 2C.
To see.
On 129.
Thank you. Each person has three soul garments: thought, speech, and action that comprise the primary components of human behavior. The choice and power is granted to us to think, speak, and act according to our desire. Even if you are emotionally afraid, you are able to remove your thought, speech, and action from that emotion. Immediately upon letting go of the thought, the fear will dissolve on its own. At the very least, the fear will become dormant and will not be felt in your body. And over the course of a few days, it will completely dissipate to the point that it will not come up in your mind at all. Removing your thought from the fear will lead to the fear's dissipation, because emotions come from the faculty of doubt by means of thought. Therefore, by removing your thought, doubt is automatically removed from the emotion and it will not awaken.
That's great. So his point is that there's more to it?
Yeah. It is appropriate for you to train yourself away from all melancholy. You can remove the fear from your heart, even when there is something legitimate to fear. All the more so in your case, in which, thank God, you have nothing to fear at all, whether in matters of your health or finances, etc.
Okay, so what is he saying? He's saying that we think that we are captives of our emotion. We must worry, and there's nothing to do about it. And in reality, although the emotion is a feeling that we have inside, it's part of who we are. But the way we access that feeling, the way we experience that feeling, or the way we allow ourselves for our feelings to create a feeling towards a certain scenario is by using our mind. If we're not going to go there, if we're not going to think about it, then our emotions will not come to the fore. Even if it's inside, at least it will remain dormant. We won't be experiencing it. So the Tzemach Tzedek is telling this chassid, he's saying, just stop worrying. How do you stop worrying? Don't let your thoughts go there. Just don't let your thoughts go. So obviously the big issue with not letting your thoughts go there is the famous Dostoevsky, I think that's how he's pronounced, on page 130. So you have text number 3. And Anita, you could read this for us, and this is a quote from him.
I'm going to thoughts. Theodore Dostoevsky, winter notes on summer issues. Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a cultivate. And you will see that the first thing will come to mind in a minute.
Right?
The primary method of removing negative
I think
thoughts.
is that the end of the quote? I think that's the
Yes.
end. That's the end of the quote. So right, the issue is to stop thinking about something just doesn't work. Tell myself, don't think about that. Don't think about that. You're gonna think about that, right? See the famous trick about trying not to think of a polar bear. You're gonna think of a polar bear. So we're trying not to think of a white bear. It's gonna come to mind. So how is it possible to do this? To try to keep our thoughts clean of negativity when it seems to be an impossible task, because if I know what I'm not trying to think of, I'm going to think of it. So this brings us to the next text, which is 131 on text 4. This is from the Rebbe.
The primary method of removing negative thoughts from your mind is by directing your mind toward the matters. This can be a worldly things if they are necessary to make you happy, and God's Torah, which delights the heart by establishing fixed times for daily study, particularly with another.
Okay, that's great. So this is the answer. The answer is we cannot focus our thoughts on not something. Thoughts don't work that way. They're not a negative. They have to be a positive. If I don't want to think about something, I have to find something else to think about. So if I'm trying to not think of a polar bear, I will think of the polar bear. But if I choose to think of something else, then I won't think of the polar bear. So the Rebbe said as follows. The Rebbe said, if you don't want to be worried, then don't think about the worry. So what should I think about? So find another topic, whether it's open up a Psalms or, listen to a class or open up a book. Do something that's going to shift your mind and distract you from that thought to other thoughts. Larry makes the point that Torah has a special power when it comes to this, which is a very interesting thing, and I find it to be true. And Torah tells us this, that although anything helps to distract our thoughts, but some things help more than others. Torah specifically is something which calms us in a very beautiful way, that it really dissolves the issue as long as we're focused on what we're doing. Okay, so that is a simple way of dealing with our thoughts. One, we spoke about talking to others. The other one we said about casting away our worries. How do we do that? Don't think about it. How do you not think about something? Focus on something else. But now, for the rest of the class, we're going to focus on another more fundamental approach to this concept of casting away our worries, which is that's if I'm worrying. If I'm worrying already and I want to stop worrying, so this would be the way of doing it. But is there a way to get myself to a place where I just don't worry? I'm not worried. And the answer would be faith. Or more importantly, trust. Because we could have faith, but we don't trust, and then we worry. Trusting in God and trusting that it'll be okay is something that will take care of that. Now, obviously, trust is a difficult thing, and we're not going to master trust in this classroom. What we will do is talk about trust and what that means and how that works, and hopefully take something home with us that we could implement throughout our week that would allow us to worry less because we'll trust more. Okay, so let's go to page 132. This is text number 5. Linda, you could read for us. This is one of the most famous Psalms in the book of Psalms by David.
God we trust. Profound effort for living without worries, developing trust in God. When we recognize that God accompanies us through every experience, and that each situation serves a purpose, we can maintain an inner calm, even in life's most turbulent times. A song of David, God is my shepherd. Oh, I love this. A song of David, God is my shepherd, I shall not want, and God is me. To lie down in green pastures, He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul, He leads me in paths of righteousness, bringing my life to His name. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I don't fear no evil, for you are with me. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God for my time.
Okay, so David trusts in God. He says he's my shepherd. He takes care of me. He carries me. This trust in God is based on 3 fundamental beliefs that we have in Judaism. Number one, God is benevolent. Number two, God is omnipotent. He controls the whole world. And number three, God is caring. Recognizing these three fundamentals allows us to cultivate a trust and a belief that everything will be okay. God has our back. He's running the show. Okay, so with that, I'm going to play a short video which will talk about the benefits of trusting God and how that would affect our stress.
Can money buy happiness? Not necessarily. It often invites the opposite response. But can money point the way to happiness? If you live in the US, it probably can. Take a peek at the dollar bill. 4 short words tell it all. Interestingly, the psychological effects of trusting God have been probed significantly. Back in 2010, Dr. David Rosmarin, a professor of psychology and widely acclaimed researcher of cognitive behavioral therapy, conducted a fascinating study into the real-life effects of trust in God.
I created a program to help people build higher levels of trust in God.
He specifically chose to test the kind of trust known to traditional Jewish belief as bitachon. Dr. Rosmarin identified spiritual strategies for coping with stress and anxiety. He then designed a program to clinically measure their influence on our natural stress coping mechanism. The 2-week program included materials, meditations, and exercises that nurtured a strong trust in God. He then deployed the program in a study of 120 random participants with reported elevated but subclinical levels of stress and anxiety. Dr. Rosmarin hoped to measure his program against a standard technique. So one group of participants was treated with progressive muscle relaxation, a typical method of stress relief that monitors and controls muscular tension. A second group of participants was provided with Dr. Rosmarin's daily Trust in God program, while a final group was offered no treatment at all. The participants were assessed before and after the program, and then again at a 6 to 8 week follow-up. The results of his study were astonishing. The muscle relaxation technique failed to produce clinically significant results when compared to the results of those who received no treatment at all. But the partakers of the Trust in God treatment scored clinically measurable improvements that were highly significant.
In statistical terms, it was a 2 standard deviation decrease in anxiety and worry over only a 2-week period, which is very, very significant.
And these gains lasted well after the program ended, demonstrating a long-lasting effect. The study indicated that the Trust in God method can be an effective practice for well-being for the global population. So instead of forking out top dollar, many of us could glance at the top of the dollar and remind ourselves that God is on top of things. When we recall where the buck truly stops, we can cash in on the benefits of cultivating confidence in our Creator, whose wealth of caring providence to each individual provides us with the capital for investing in our own state of happiness and calm.
It really provided clear evidence that working on one's faith can reduce levels of anxiety and depression and make things better. Experimental, clinical evidence.
Okay, that's great.
I have one problem.
Yes.
I am spiritual, I believe in Hashem, I get Hashem for every single thing in the world was positive, and I ask for his understanding when it doesn't, or for his help. But, the big but is, when you're taught in life, that if you're not confronting certain situations in your life, you're abdicating. You're not being responsible, and you're not handling. And those are the words that I'm constantly hearing myself. You know, you always want to fix what's broken. That's just the nature of man. Most men, some men, some part of man wants to also destroy, but I would like to think the majority want to fix things. And I find that with that in mind, I can't fully let go, you know, in that respect, because in reality, I understand. We like to know this is a pencil, here it is, it's on a book. When you speak about Hashem, I understand it's ethereal. It's something we believe, it's a concept. So I find it hard to make that transition.
Absolutely.
Also a Torah study, again, the human factor. I did 2 years of rabbi work. But I realized I'm no further from this point that I was at the beginning to where I am at the 2 years. I have 2 books like this filled with notes that I've taken.
I don't believe that.
I swear to you, I'll bring them to you.
I don't believe that you're at the same place that you started.
Oh, to tell you the truth, I find it possibly, I never like to say age, ever. But I do know I'm not as sharp as I was when I was a teenager or middle age, you understand, or as receptive to academia or things of that. However, if I get confused with names where it becomes overwhelming to me, and I can't easily fit the pieces in my head, I get very frustrated with myself. I get angry with myself. And I know, yes, I'll be very frank, I did enjoy Rabbi Gordon a lot. And I did look forward to doing it with it. And then one day, after all these notes that I take, I said, it's going nowhere. It's just going nowhere.
So I would say you're touching on a lot of points here, number of points. But I would say, number one, our job, you initially spoke about the control, the need to control. And what's confusing is that God asked us to work. So the fact that he asked us to work sounds like we are supposed to be in control. And the tricky part is he asked us to work, but not to lose trust. And the balance is to recognize that my job is to do what I could do. But what's going to actually happen is up to God, right? So I'll give you an interesting example. You know, there's a basic example. Let's say we need to put food on the table, so we work. So I say, okay, I'm going to work, the money will come in, the food will come onto the table. No, it's not what Judaism says. Judaism says you have to work, God will put food on the table. Whether the money will come from your business or will come from somewhere else is not up to you. And it's not something that you have to worry about. Your obligation is not to bring in money. Your obligation is to work. You're making a vessel. God will do the rest. How he chooses to do it is up to him. Whether he'll do it in this way or another way is completely up to him, as long as I know that I'm doing my part. So it's not about me being successful. It's about me doing my part. The success will come from God in whatever way he chooses to bring it about. So that's the concept. Now, this concept is a difficult concept to live with. And going back to your second point, which is, you know, you trust in God, you know about God, but you actually live with that. This is something, and to actually know that God is here, and it seems it's theoretical. This is something which takes a lot of time and work and patience and kind of habitual. So anything in life to become real, we have to live with it as a habit. So if I want to allow God to be in my life, and that my actual nervous system will be different because of it, it's not going to happen from studying a book. It's not going to happen from studying 2 books. It's going to happen from studying a book and taking those ideas, and developing it and thinking about it and allowing those ideas to actually affect my life. So if I'm going to start applying it to life in certain scenarios, slowly, those will start seeping in and they'll become real. They'll stop being theoretical. I can tell you for myself, when COVID hit, I had an incredible experience because I was studying about trust in God. And the theory that I was studying and my actual reality of COVID were conflicting with each other because the study was all about trust, and here I'm losing it. COVID, and no one knows what's going on. And there was the question: how much do I have to do to protect myself, to wash my hands, and how neurotic do I have to be to protect myself? And I had to learn how to apply my study to reality, which actually made my study so much more real. And I ended up understanding my studies on a far deeper level because I learned how it actually applies. And whenever my heart would get frustrated or get scared, I would have to stop myself and think, okay, what's going on? And what's the truth? And think, what does that truth tell my body? What does that truth tell my heart? How should my heart now be reacting? And only by exercising that time and time again does that become more and more common, to the point that something annoying could happen and your knee-jerk reaction will be completely different than what it was 2 weeks ago. Your knee-jerk reaction will be a positive one and say, this is from God and it's a positive thing. It's not a negative. But that takes time and it takes exercise. So I think that's then the last point that you said about you mentioned about Josh Gordon affecting you. So I just wanted to mention them to do this class that the effect that Torah has on us is on many levels. So first of all, studying Torah in general. Were you on my Friday class? I don't think I saw you.
Yes.
Yes, we were.
Oh, this past Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember. Sorry, I don't remember. So we spoke about this, how
I ended it actually, that we saw, I had made the.
yes, of course. So you were the one that got us to that whole track. So very good. So what was I saying there? What I went on over there was to say that Torah study is not what we take from it. Like any mitzvah, we're elevating the world, we're bringing godliness into the world. So even if, hypothetically, I don't hold on to anything from what I've done, but the beauty and the illumination that I've accomplished in this world remains forever, right? So that won't go away, right? So the mitzvah that I've done, the effect that I've had on humanity will remain forever. That's number one. Number two is aside from the intellectual effects or the emotional effects that Torah could have on us, and again, I think it takes work, but there's also the soul effect, that our soul connects to it. We feel ourselves, and that's something that affects us, whether we're conscious of it or either on a conscious level or on a subconscious level. So the fact that you study with Josh Gordon and you have notes on that, which means that you invested yourself in that study, that it's impossible that you aren't a different person than you were when you started. Does that mean intellectually? Does that mean in knowledge? You have all that knowledge and you contained it? I can't say that. That's a very difficult thing to say. That takes a lot of work. But definitely on a soul level, you're connected. And every day you connected in, for 15 minutes or for a half hour, whatever it was, on a very deep level with the writing, investment. That's something that could never go back. That's something that's a permanent stamp on your soul. And every step is closer to God and more alive. So I'm going to disagree with you about that. Yeah, that's just my take.
It's just very frustrating.
Absolutely.
Because I want to know more. I want to retain more. I want to be able to speak comfortably about the effort, about the bulk material that I am trying to do osmosis and learning and studying
Sure.
to expand upon. And I just, when it comes to that, I just find I don't have the capabilities, and it's not giving me that confidence of doing it. And as I said, it's my own frustration. I'm being straight with you,
Sure.
but I like to feel that once I'm learning something or I have it, I can feel comfortable about sharing it. Or,
Absolutely.
you know, that's the part that I don't get that pleasure from, or that sense where I'm connected.
Right.
I'm getting it.
Absolutely. So sometimes you have to say it to yourself in the moment. And then in general, that's something which I find that we've spoken about this in the last class, that our brain is made up of two parts primarily. There's the chachma and the bina. There's the wisdom and the understanding. This is an interesting point. So the wisdom is the initial flash, right? The initial aha moment. And the bina is when I actually cultivate, I actually understand it. So sometimes you could be listening to an idea or be trying to think of an idea and it will come to you like, aha. And then you'll try to verbalize it and you'll actually realize that you don't get it. So what happened? You got it on a state of wisdom. Now that you moved into yourself and you tried to verbalize it for yourself, to hold on to it, you lost it. Now, what's interesting is that I find that I could listen to a class from a great teacher, someone that I think is fabulous. And a fabulous teacher in my mind is not someone that just gives you the wisdom, but they give you the understanding that you feel like it's really, really, you can hold on to it, you can walk away with it. And then I'll find that I'll go ahead and I'll explain it to someone else and I totally lose myself and I'm not finding the words. And I'm like, wait, did I not get this? Is this not mine? Did I not relate to this? And Hasidus teaches us that memory, which is another part of our brain, where is memory linked to? Our memory is linked to the chachma, the wisdom part of our brain, not the bina, not the understanding part of the brain. Which is why naturally, which part of something will we remember? We'll naturally remember the aha moment. We'll remember the truth of it. We'll remember that it sat with me. But more than that is not going to sit in our memory as easily. So I could listen to a class and I could have such a clear message in my mind, and I'll try to explain it to someone, but the only memory that I really have will be that this is true. But the frustration of I can't actually say the words and express it almost makes me feel like I don't actually know it. But in reality, it's simply because our memory is linked with that part of our brain. So how do we solve that? The only way to solve that is to, when we're listening to the class, when we're listening to the breakdown of it, to make a specific effort to remember that part. So I'm not just trying to remember the general point, because then I'm only going to remember the general point, but to remember the exact buildup that they said, the exact breakdown. And if I could repeat it to myself, right, or especially if you have it on paper, then that's going to remain with you because you worked on that specifically. Otherwise, if it's just the general concept, right? So you hear a story, and the guy said the story with all details, and it's so beautiful, and the story is like real. It's like alive in your mind. If you don't make a point to repeat to yourself the details of the story, when you say over the story to someone, you're just going to remember the point. You're not going to remember the details, even though the whole story was so clear to you, because our memory is linked with that part of our brain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that's an interesting
you.
point.
Yes, I appreciate that really help us see a different way of interpreting and catching and holding that one concept. The aha.
Right,
The aha.
right, exactly.
Thank you.
Sure.
That was really perfect.
Okay, what I want to do now is I want to do a quick meditation. Do you guys ever do meditations? Do you like meditations?
I've done
Somewhat. Mindfulness. So I want to do a quick meditation about trusting God. Talking about being aware that God is taking care of us, and that God has our back. So I'm going to ask you to put your stuff down. You put your pen already down. You could give yourself some space, put your feet down on the ground. You could look straight ahead or whatever works for you. Close your eyes, settle in your seat, and allow yourself to take a deep breath in. You could hold it for a little bit. You could breathe out. And allow your breathing to slow down. Taking a breath in and a breath out. So your body soften. Give yourself permission to be here for a few minutes. Let's start with a simple image. Bring to mind someone you trust. Someone whose presence steadies you. Notice what it is about them that makes you rest a little easier. Perhaps the way they show up, or the way they follow through. Notice the way you feel when you're near them. Now imagine that this person didn't just wander into your life. Imagine they were placed there with intention. Picture them as a messenger sent to help you along, to lighten your load, to remind you that you're not moving through the world alone. Let their presence feel like a gift. And as you recognize that gift, allow yourself to feel the one that gave it to you, God. Let yourself feel cared for. Now shift your attention to something you treasure. Perhaps your power of sight, your hands, a moment of laughter, family, anything that means the world to you. Hold it in your mind as if you're holding it gently in your hands. See it as something given to you, not owed to you. It's a sign of love. Let yourself feel gratitude for it. Whisper a simple thank you to God. Let that thank you land. Now, bring up a memory of a stressful moment. Something that once made your stomach tighten, or your shoulders rise. Remember how it felt before it worked out. The worry, the uncertainty. Then remember how it actually unfolded, how the pieces came together in a way you didn't expect, how relief replaced your fears. Imagine how differently it could have gone if the world was run by randomness, by chaos. Notice the difference between that idea and what actually happened. See that outcome as another gift. Let yourself feel cared for in that moment. Now let's bring our attention to something ordinary, something we do without thinking. Opening the fridge, flipping the light switch, standing up from our chair. Notice how many tiny details need to work smoothly for that simple action to happen. Let that awareness nudge you toward trust. The same God who places people in your life gives you the treasures you cherish and steers stressful moments towards peace, is the one holding you in every small, everyday movement. Allow yourself to sit with that trust for a moment. Let it settle in your breath, in your thoughts, in your body. And when you're ready, bring your attention back to your breathing and follow my voice and open your eyes. Come back here. Okay. How was that? So this was a taste of what that doctor did with his patients. He didn't necessarily do it as a meditation, but he did it as an exercise. I think that actually those exercises are in the book somewhere. I'm not sure, maybe page 137 or 136. And basically this was a daily exercise that they went through to think about God in their life and to experience that trust and to gain that trust. And by doing that every day over the course, do you see it? If you give me the book, I'll find it. No, if you here, I'll find it for you. Well, yeah, but this one. So page 135, there were 4 exercises there. And these were the exercises that he implemented with his patients to do on a daily basis, which eventually cultivated that trust in God. Okay, so what's the message? The message is, as it says on the screen, don't take life for granted, take it as granted. Right? So we tend to not realize that someone is giving it to us. And that's very important. Now, although this sounds very nice and very beautiful, but David is saying, God is my shepherd. Was he living under a rock? Did he not have issues? Did he not have headaches? So in the actual psalm, David says, you are there for me in the valley of death, in the valley of darkness. And David was very much aware of that valley of darkness. He experienced that. But he allowed himself to have trust in God within that darkness, understanding that he's there with a mission. And that's the next step of this conversation, which is when we encounter a mission, when we encounter a difficulty, it's a mission. Picture the climber climbing the mountain and meets a rock. They're excited because this is what they're doing. This is what life is about. It's about climbing that rock. And for us, when we encounter a difficulty, when we recognize that it's not random, when we recognize that it was placed there by God, we realize that it's a mission that we could overcome. And that's when the worry dissipates, because the overwhelmingness is when we view life as random. So then why is this happening to me? But if I realize that it's there on purpose, and I have the ability to overcome it, and I was created to overcome it. That's what makes me unique. That's what makes me special. This is my mission to accomplish. That's when we could deal with our issues. That's when we could really overcome our challenges. So with that, I'm going to invite you to page 138. I don't remember who read last. Anita, you could read for us, page 138, text number 8b.
That we should clearly recognize.
Yes, so let me see it.
Don't see the thing there.
Yes,
Purpose in every journey.
yeah, we should clearly recognize text 8b, 138. This is a quote from Rav Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev, who was a student of the Baal Shem Tov.
We should clearly recognize that our travels to different places are not random, God forbid, but specifically directed by God. God's intention is that a particular person has a specific portion to rectify in a particular place, whether through Torah study and prayer, or through eating, drinking, and sleeping for the sake of heaven, or through another means of serving God. The Baal Shem Tov of righteous memory explained the verse, God establishes the steps of man, to mean that God imparts the desire to a person to travel to a specific place, with God's intention being that the person should engage there in a particular divine service, thereby rectifying what this person must rectify. Therefore, when we come to a particular place, we must take this to heart and ask ourselves, why am I here? For what purpose did God bring me here? It is certainly not for naught.
Right. So this is a fundamental idea which should really help us in life if we, think about this and exercise this concept, which is that where I am and the difficulties that I face, the challenges that I face, are actually placed there by God, and there's a mission and a purpose there. It's not random. There is nothing random. And when I realize that there's a purpose, there's a conductor behind it who believes in me and is giving this to me because this is my job, because I could change my reality, that's what gives us the energy to carry through. There's a great story with Mendel Futterfass. Mendel Futterfass was one of the great Hasidim of this past generation. My father knew him very well, very loved man. And he spent 20 years, I believe, or at least 10, but I think it was 20, in the Gulag, in Siberia or whatever, for teaching Torah in Russia. And when he was there, so people asked him, how are you so upbeat? In general, he was a very happy person, but over there, people are depressed. He's like, how are you so upbeat? And Mendel would tell them, he said, the fact that you're here means that you lost your job. You used to be a plumber, you used to be a fireman, you used to be a thief, or whatever you were in your previous lifetime, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, and now you lost that. And you're not able to do that anymore. And now you're here and you're stuck. He said, thank God my job wasn't taken away from me, because my job is to serve God. And I could serve God anywhere. I served God in my previous lifetime, and I serve God here in the Gulag just as much. And maybe it's a little more difficult. Maybe serving God takes on a different, image. But the job is the same. My life is the same. The focus of my life is the same. I'm here to serve God. I'm here to do what God wants of me. So there's this great story about the Melech of Lizensk and his brother, the Bzusha Vanipoli. I mentioned Bzusha last week, I think. So the Melech of Lizensk and the Bzusha Vanipoli, they were brothers, and they were holy people, students of the Baal Shem Tov. And they would travel the countryside, sharing stories with people, sharing about Judaism, very warm people. And sure enough, whatever reason, I don't know exactly how, they landed up in the Russian prison for a night, in a prison cell. They were mistaken for someone, they landed up in the prison cell. And the Melech is getting ready to daven mincha. So his brother Abzusha turns to him and says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to pray." He said, "You're not allowed to pray." He said, "Why not?" So he points to the middle of the room. And in the middle of the room, there was this big pail. And the pail was used to relieve themselves. It was the bathroom. And it stunk, and it was very uncleanly. It was probably part of the way of treating the inmates to make them feel, dehumanize them. And the Abzusha said, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to pray in such an environment, an uncleanly environment. So the Melech heard that, he sat down on the floor and he started crying. So the Abzusha said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "What do you mean, why am I crying?" "Because I want to pray. I've never missed a prayer in my life. Praying was so dear to him. And here he's going to lose the opportunity to pray the mincha prayer." And the Abzusha turns to me and says, "My brother, don't cry." I said, "Why not?" He said, "The same mitzvah that you have every single day to pray to God, today, the mitzvah is not to pray. What God wants of you now is not to pray." With the message being that service of God never ends. They might change form, but it doesn't end. And if God says, don't pray in an uncleanly place, and you're stuck in a prison cell and you can't pray, that's what God wants of you at that moment. And recognizing in every situation that I'm in, what God wants from me in this moment. God put me here with a mission and a purpose, something to accomplish. I go to the jail and I meet people. I go to the hospital and I meet patients. People are very unhappy to be there, and I don't blame them. But I tell them, in reality, you're not here for the doctor. You're not here because you need the doctor. You're here because the doctor needs you. There's something that you could accomplish here, whether it's a smile or a good word. There's something that you could accomplish here that no one in history since the creation of the world was able to accomplish. And that's why God needs you here right now. So when we show up to our challenges with that sort of approach, it's on purpose. I'm here with a mission. It's not by mistake. I'm not stuck. Then we get past life's challenges. There's a great story of the Rebbe's wife, Rabbi Tzimchaya Mushka. So the Rebbe's wife used to often go out for walks. So her driver would often drive her to Long Island. People say that he would drive her to Americana Manhasset, and she would do her shopping there. And then there's a park across the street. I don't know if it was here or somewhere else, but she would often come to the Long Island area and go and take a stroll in the park. She didn't want anyone to recognize her. She wanted her peace and quiet. And one day she comes and she's taking her walk. And on the way back home, back to Brooklyn, the regular way that they would go was blocked off. So they had to take a detour. And as they're taking the detour, they see a whole commotion. And they hear someone screaming hysterically. So the Rebbetzin asks the driver to stop, and she says, "Find out what's going on." Sure enough, he comes back and he tells her there's a family that's being evicted. They can't afford their rent, and they're devastated, and that's the commotion. And she says, I want to speak to the family. And she meets them, and she tells them, "I want to pay your next month rent." And sure enough, she pays the rent, and they're able to stay there. And as they're driving back, the driver asked her, why did you do that? Why did you care so much to stop and to inquire and then to ask and then to pay? And then she said, my father taught me that everything that happens in the world happens with a purpose. Nothing is by accident. And she said, when we saw that block in the road, it made me wonder, what's the purpose? Why is God making us take a detour? And when I heard the screaming, I said, maybe this is the purpose. And that's why that was important to me. I don't know why that happens. Must be a purpose to that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to invite you to page 142. And this is the final exercise of today. And the exercise is to ask ourselves what resonated from this class and what's the hardest to implement from this class. Anyone want to share? Nita, you want to tell us what most resonated with you from this class?
I thought it really resonated when you said about gaining wisdom, that memories lead to wisdom, which will understand the breakdown of understanding and the emotional aspect of it. Applying this knowledge with consistency in my life and not allowing emotions to always dominate.
That's great.
Try to apply it to my daily things that occur,
Sure.
the daily things that occur, but and also to keep the faith consistent, because I always goes back where I read, man is vanity, everything is vanity. So in praying, I'm hoping to bring brownie points, maybe that's the reality. Underlying each one of us, I think we are motivated by survival instinct, possibly doing the right thing, and a lot of it is selfish. And I once heard it said by a rabbi actually, that God is not our value. We are here to serve God, not to ask God. But yet we do. Inherently, we do sometimes. And then we're so grateful and our faith becomes more validating in all of the things go in the direction we hope for. So I really try very hard to separate selfish parts. And then I also have a very hard time dealing my intense faith when I visualize things that have happened in history, hostages. And I do question that, and I'm not supposed to. is a true test of faith. I know we're not supposed to test blind with it, but it does go back to that.
We're definitely allowed to ask why.
But, I mean, why should I be grateful to God for what I get? It's for other people that and what other people have suffered. That's what I have a hard time resolving. For those people. It's like survivor's guilt in some way.
That's great. There's no problem with asking that question.
So I said an awful lot, said a lot that probably is, so, you know, these are unresolved things, but I tried very hard to make it all positive. And constantly my faith is there. I mean, I can think of things in my own life for certain. I mean, giving more faith than ever, but it's just.
There's definitely no problem with asking those questions. There's definitely no problem with asking those questions and recognizing that we're here for God is not supposed to be something that pushes us down. It's supposed to be something that empowers us. You know, recognizing that there's a mission and a purpose and we're not random, that we're needed. It says that they say that people rather be needed than loved.
And to apply that ability that we should be grateful to have the ability to try to make it better
Yes,
for our purpose.
yes, yes.
So that's things that we cannot change, but we have no power to change, but we face the faith.
So there you go. There you go. Okay, that's great. Now, you want to share something?
Well, first of all, people are just guilt. You know,
Jewish guilt.
yeah, you know, it's like a mother and a child. God is the mother or the parent,
Right, sure.
and if you don't, you know, you feel you want to always please, or if you don't please, there's retribution. You don't want retribution, so, you know, that, I don't want that relationship.
No,
I've had it,
you
I've
don't.
been there, it's not what I want.
You were at my class of fear of God.
Yes,
We spoke about that a little bit.
yeah, so that's not what I'm seeking. I'm seeking God as something that is an element in my life that raises me to another level, makes me more appreciative of my existence and the existence of those that are in my life and the gifts that He's given me. And I always refer to everything as a gift because there's no entitlement to it. There is none. Although people out here say differently, there is no entitlement. Thing that is, it's the imbalance. When you see those that are starving and those that are comfortable. I mean, that's like, you know, that's not acceptable. But then you take something like the prayer that we just read, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And that is very, very close to me because I still have the image. And not that I dwell on it, believe me, I don't dwell on it, because that's why I don't sit and worry a lot because of what I've lived. But happens things, you understand. We're not in control. But I remember walking behind my son's casket with the rabbi who was officiating and saying that as we were walking to his grave. That is what I remember. And that's why I feel very close to this prayer, because it's very new. But it's through that experience that I had with my son, to tell you truthfully, is what made me realize the fragility of life and how little control we have. And it's our opportunity to take the gift that we've been given and to utilize it in a positive way. And I feel that by living it in any other way, you are diminishing Hashem by the gift He gave, because you're not appreciating it. You're not appreciating it. How do you show Hashem any positive? To me, it's living your life in that way. So when it comes to, yeah, there are things right now in my own personal life that I'm battling, which I'm trying very hard to deal with. And I feel saying nothing is the best way to go, and let Hashem lead me in some way.
I want to read to you something that's amazing. I want to read to you something that I saw yesterday. A letter, it's a snippet of a letter of the Rebbe. Someone wrote to the Rebbe. Let me just find it 1 second. And I thought it was such powerful words. And I want to talk about that in a second. So the Rebbe writes as follows. The Rebbe writes, finally you say that if I knew you personally, I would form a different opinion of you. From that, not finally, then the letter. So you say that if I knew you personally, I would form a different opinion of you from that which might be formed by others who judge by appearance and by external things. And this is someone that the whole letter is, he was challenging the Rebbe, the whole letter. The Rebbe tells him the following.
He was an angry person.
He sounds like an angry person. And now he's telling the Rebbe that if you would know me personally, you would think of me better than what people tend to think of me when they just meet me. So the Rebbe tells him the following. Let me assure you that my opinion of you is perhaps even better than the opinion you may have of yourself. Right? And something that I was something I was discussing with my wife yesterday was you have a copy machine. Let's say you built a copy machine, you bought a copy machine to make copies. Right? That's why we have a copy machine to make copies, to print out stuff. Now the copy machine, imagine the copy machine was conscious. And the copy machine said, why do I exist? Like, what's my validity? Like, what did I accomplish in life? And then the copy machine decided, maybe I should like do something. Maybe I should build a house. Maybe I should. So you say, no, you're just supposed to make copies. So then the copy machine says, but I'm not invested in making copies. I don't do anything to make the copies. It just happens. So maybe I have to do it. They say, no. If you do it, you're gonna jam it. Just let it happen. Why do I say this? I say this because I think we are copy machines with a conscience. God made every single one of us. And if we recognize that we were created with a mission, then our existence and allowing ourselves to do what we do best, not pushing it, not making it happen, allowing it to happen, is us accomplishing our mission, is our greatest validation. And the moment we get in the way and we say, okay, so let me do it, I have to be part of it, or maybe I have to do something else. I spent Shabbos yesterday in Newark by Mushka. So we were talking about her births and whatever. So she was sharing with us, and I thought it was so profound that, when a woman is giving birth, so she says, you have to let go. And you have to let it happen. And the moment you say, let me make it happen, or how do I control it? You're stopping it. And recognizing, and then she said this, recognizing that you have that the fact that it's happening is your greatest power in life. There's nothing greater in life that you could accomplish than what's happening at this moment. Something that you don't have to do. It's something that God gave you the ability to do. That should give you the validation that you don't need to do anything else in life. You don't need to accomplish something. Right? You are enough. Let me just tell Shani that I'm finishing up the class. Okay, so with that, I want to go over to the key points. It's on the next page. I'm also reading it on the screen, whatever you want. We are not hostages of our emotions. We can do more than wait out negative emotions. The Talmud presents two approaches for dealing with worrisome thoughts. One approach is to talk over your worries with another person. Another approach is to cast away worrisome thoughts. Number 3, in most situations, we can govern our emotional lives by controlling our thoughts. Nevertheless, it is often counterproductive to try to stop thinking of something. To cast away a thought, the mind must become absorbed in something else that is relevant and engaging. Number 4, the basic principles of Jewish monotheistic belief teach us that God is benevolent, omnipotent, and caring. This forms the basis of bitachon, or trust. We can relax because we are in good hands. In God we trust helps us cultivate optimism about the future. In one study, believing, not necessarily religious Jews, with elevated but subclinical levels of stress and worry, engaged in reflection on the topic of bitachon each day for 2 weeks. They reported significant reductions of stress, worry, depression, and intolerance to uncertainty. One common hindrance to bitachon is the feeling that there is no precedent upon which to base this trust. When we stop taking the blessings in our life for granted, but as granted, we repeatedly find robust precedent upon which to rebuild our bitachon. Our trust in God need not ignore the possibility of future hardship. Rather, even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. While we will likely never understand why God allows troubles to occur, when we can trust that God will be with us, guiding us, supporting us, encouraging us, knowing this helps us remain calm. The places we go are not random, but directed by God toward a specific purpose. When we come to a particular place, we should ask ourselves, for what purpose did God bring me here? This applies just the same for the events of our lives, including those that normally cause us frustration and sadness. Trusting that there is a purpose in every experience and being determined to discover it and implement it enables us to remain calm, unafraid when considering the dark moments that may materialize in the future. Finally, if we plumb within, we will discover a divine spark that has passionate faith and unwavering trust in God. Bringing trust to our conscious mind is not creating something new, but revealing that which is already always there. Thank you for joining us.